talk about mildew on squash and cucumbers in a few minutes. You can soak some of that in water overnight and spray it on the foliage. That will help with early blight. This product is the best thing that I have found against it. It's called Plant Wash, and I don't know what's in it that makes it a good fungicide, but this is the best stuff I've found. If you see early blight, if your tomato plants start yellowing from the bottom up, get some of this and spray it about once a week or so. The other thing that is frequently a problem with tomatoes is the spider mite. Spider mites are tiny little things. They live on the backs of the leaves. They literally suck the juice out of the leaf. And once they get really severe, you actually see little webbing on there. They're not spiders. They are a mite. And they can be very, very destructive. You see them on lots of plants like marigolds and copper plants and beans and tomatoes in the garden. If you want to stop spider mites before they ever get started, liquid seaweed is the thing that stops them. And better still, a mixture of seaweed and molasses. We pre-mix some of that stuff. I don't know if we have any of it out here or not. If you can make your own mix, gallon of water, 2 tablespoons seaweed, 1 tablespoon of molasses. Spray that about every 2 weeks and you'll never see a spider mite. Now, the way that works is it actually makes the plant resistant to the spider mite. My business partner, Roberta, and I were at a nurseryman's convention in Dallas a few years back, visiting with a lady up there that said, I found that if I spray my marigolds with that mix, I don't have spider mites on them. And believe me, boy, if you want to have spider mites, plant marigolds. Don't believe all this crap from up north about how it repels nematodes. Don't worry about that. It's a gallon of water, 2 tablespoons seaweed, 1 tablespoon molasses.
Spray on the foliage.
Spray on the foliage. I told Malcolm Beck about this, and of course Malcolm says, well, I don't know about that, I'm going to have to try it. So he went out, took some old spider mite-ridden tomato plants, sprayed them a couple of times, and he calls me about 3 weeks later. He says, Bob, this is a miracle. You know, he has a little microscope. He loves to stick stuff underneath. He said, I sprayed those plants. I looked at the leaves 3 weeks later. He said, all the bad mites were gone, but all the good mites were still there. What did this tell us? It told us there was nothing toxic in there that was killing the mites, but what was happening, it was toughening the leaves to where the spider mites could no longer affect them. So those are the things that will get after the plants. Now, there are some things that would like to eat on the fruit, what we call leaf-footed bugs and stink bugs. Those are probably the 2 worst guys out there. I wear thin garden gloves. The thumb and forefinger method is the best way I know of to eliminate them. What is the Chinese expression, the best insecticide is the footprint of the gardener. It's a good thing, and try to catch them early before they start reproducing a lot. If you have a serious problem with them later, this is one thing that works well. This is a finely powdered diatomaceous earth. Totally safe for people to actually put this in some of the better dog food brands and things, and takes care of internal parasites. But you can pop the top off. You can either put this little tube on it or not. You just give it a little gentle squeeze, and a whole cloud, just a cloud of just, very fine material comes out. If any of y'all were at the Festival of Flowers, Howard Garrett did this to me last year and totally coated me with it. But I don't know what he was trying to do. I'm not that much of a pest, I don't think. But anyway, that works well against those things. The other thing that I'm going to be experimenting with this year, and I'll give you reports on how it works, and that's an old method of that is used in greenhouses mainly just to see what is out there in the way of insects. But a lot of people are now finding it can be used for insect control, and that is what we call sticky traps. And sticky traps are basically cards that are about this size. They're yellow in color, and guess what? They're sticky. Can you imagine that? It's kind of like the old fly paper. The yellow color tends to bring insects in. I'll suspend this way up off the ground because I don't want lizards and things getting to it. And unfortunately, I'll probably catch a few beneficials, but they are not nearly as attracted as the cucumber beetles and the stink bugs and things are. I'll give you a report on how that works. Yes, ma'am.
What is the best kind of sprayer? I've bought so many sprayers that just dribble stuff out. It's bound to be a really good.
You know, I like the pump-up sprayers, the individual sprayers. I also like the sprayer that goes on the end of the hose if you get a good brand. And but you know, pay the money to get a good one. Yes, ma'am.
We had a problem last year toward the end of the year with the little tiny white I don't know, is it fly or something, and it attacked our tomatoes, and they got under the leaves and just sucked them dry.
It's probably whitefly.
Yeah.
Among other things, absolutely stop spraying any chemicals. There is a natural control for whitefly. It's a little wasp that parasitizes and kills them. It's not something you can buy. But if, places where people have used chemicals and knocked out a lot of the beneficial insects, they have a bad whitefly problem. But generally after a year or two in an organic gardening, you'll never see another whitefly. If you see whitefly, the insecticidal soaps, like Safer's insecticidal soap, are the best thing to control it, because that's the one product that gets the eggs, the larvae, and the adults. But again, it's kind of like webworms. An organic program, if you stop knocking down the wasp nest, you'll never have a webworm. But same way with whiteflies, and try to get your neighbors to get away from the chemicals. Yes?
When do you remove the insect from your tomatoes?
The stuff around the base stays there all year.
Just at the base?
Yeah.
You never go higher though?
I've never had to, so I don't usually worry with that. If I was going to, I'd wait till the tomato came up and out of the top above it. Yes?
What would you recommend for aphids besides
Aphids are the sign of stress. Try to figure out what's stressing the plants. Usually it's too little water or too much water. Aphids just don't get on a healthy plant unless it's the end of the season. I mean, if it's April and your cabbage is coated with aphids, they're telling you pull this up. It's the end of the season for cabbage.
What do those look like?
Little, about the size of the head of a pin, soft-bodied, fat creature. They may be green or yellow or brown. They tend to run around in big numbers. If you, talk about an adapted creature. These things, they're born pregnant, and they reproduce in huge numbers. They don't have wings unless the plant is getting really stressed. If the plant is getting really stressed, they key in on some chemical that's in the plant. The next generation will have wings so it can fly away and infest something else. But again, they only hit stressed plants, so try to avoid stress, and you shouldn't have aphids. Yes?
I was talking to our grandson last night, and he's trying to start a garden. He couldn't come today, so he asked me to ask.
He's got it down, yes! That's even better than the neighbor. Yeah, sure.
Well, anyway, he said cut ants had taken down all his tomatoes and everything.
Cut ants are a real problem. We have some of them in the hill country, but you get south and you've got real troubles. Cut ants do not eat foliage, but they cut the leaves off, they take it and they put it in an underground chamber, and then they eat a fungus that grows on the leaves. That's what a cut ant lives on. If you find a cut ant mound, it'll be a bare patch of soil, maybe as big as the inside of this little space here, with a bunch of different openings into it. And if you took and punched down through the top of it, you'd feel it break into this big underground chamber where the ants are farming their leaves, so to speak, and eating the fungus. The only thing we found that really works well against them is to get some wettable sulfur and dust the top of the mound real heavily with wettable sulfur and water it in. Sulfur's a natural fungicide. It kills the fungus that the ants are eating on. It's not 100% effective. It may wipe out some colonies. It may make some colonies move. But I can promise you the poisons don't work. Now on trees and things, we wrap a piece of aluminum foil or plastic around, put a real sticky stuff called tanglefoot on it. But with things like tomatoes, you pretty much have to find the mound and try to go after it.
He did, I said, would beneficial nematodes help that too or not?
They help some, but they're not 100% effective.
Okay, and he said he already put poison out, so what is that? What does that do to it?
Well, it tells you the poison didn't work. Just get the sulfur and go after it with that. Probably 10 pounds on a mound the size of this room. Yep. Yes, sir. Yep.
Bob, you mentioned putting the insulate all the way to the top to prevent thrips.
Uh-huh.
Last year, because I'm lazy, I had put it up and left it there. But I noticed that I did not appear to be getting the leaf-footed bugs or the stink bugs until I took it down.
Probably so.
I'm going to check again this year, but it's just a thought.
The biggest problem is, though, then how do you pick the fruit?
Yeah.
I mean, my tomatoes start making at this level, and I've got the insulate this high.
That's why your wife goes out and undoes the clothespins and makes the
See, I don't have a wife, so and my girlfriend's not interested in doing that. By the way, I got a wonderful comment the other day for all you gentlemen in the room. A married man should always forget his mistakes. There's no sense in two people remembering the same thing. Anyway, somebody, I think along with that same email, said the two most common mistakes that are made on a daily basis is a woman marrying a man thinking he'll change, and a man marrying a woman and thinking she won't. Anyway, little side bit of